Right, and we're live, so we'll give you, same as always, just a couple minutes just for people to join.
You get a lovely view of our...
You probably can't hear Freya.
Okay. I'll go a bit closer. You get a lovely view of our muddy workers in the swamp. Probably warn them. We're live. You're on camera.
Best behaviour.
We definitely have, well, Alex hasn't yet. We have been working. We're not just making them do all the work.
I've been
we're
working.
Chatting about it.
Just haven't been doing this for
yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, shall we start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Been
get
a
going.
minute and a bit. Hopefully someone's watching. If not, if you're watching this after the fact, welcome as well.
Yeah. So good morning. I'm Freya.
And I am Alex behind the camera.
So, we're from the Green Gym team in Leeds, but we're not today.
Is this not the big pond at the back of Hollybush?
That really big No, so we're actually going from Blyth today. So we're filming this live. So that's why we had that little bit at the beginning so people can join. But if you're watching this back after the event, then yeah, it's unedited. So bear with us. Yeah, we're at Blyth Estuary Nature Reserve today up in Northumberland, and because we're doing work on a project a little bit different to what we normally do, which we are working at an old colliery at the Blyth Estuary on a replant project. So it's a little bit of regeneration, habitat creation, and also an industrial filtering system. So it's got quite a lot of interesting stuff to it that we're going to talk through a little bit today. We'll also go a little bit into the other sort of regeneration, rewilding stuff that CCD works on, and other offices that Hollybush do quite a lot of around the UK. So yeah, should we come across here?
Go across the boardwalk.
So we're in a pond at the moment that's been drained, and this is where we're working. But if we get through that, come up to the top here. As we come out of the dip, it might get a little bit windy, so please just say in the comments. We've got Hazel who's doing the tech support, who's in the comments section, so she'll let us know if it's a bit windy and you're struggling to hear us, and we'll try and speak up as much as possible. But we'll be down in the dip most of the time where it's slightly less windy. We'll come up here. So we are at an old colliery that shut down in 1986. So sort of over there's the old mine shaft of the coal mine, and yeah, it shut down in 1986, and it's just, when they shut it down, they stopped pumping out all of the water, they stopped maintaining it as you would a functioning coal mine, but then realised that gradually was filling up with water, and the water had all the pollutants that are in a coal mine or mine of any kind, that were then, as the mine filled up, it became a risk that they were going to go out into the River Blyth and then go into the estuary and go into the sea. So what's happened is the coal authority brought in a project to filter out this system. And this project has been running for quite a few years now, and we're working on a stage of it today. So the mine water comes out and it goes into ponds at the top here. There's another deep pond back there. So these are really deep ponds, and the water comes up and it's been through a filtering system. It comes out of the shaft, and then it goes into these ponds where it settles, and all of the sort of bulky matter, all the clay and all the gunk kind of settles down to the bottom, so you're just left with the water. And then if you look up this end, we've just got Simon from our community network walking past in the background. It's an all TCV effort going on. So at this end, the water from the settling ponds comes in, and it comes into this pond here. So this pond is more of a wetland normally, so it's much, much shallower. Those deep ponds are about 10 metres deep. So they're all, you see there's this big security fence. They're all blocked off from the public. That's site access only that they've got up there. But then it comes down here to this wetland that is on the edge of the Blyth Estuary Nature Reserve up here. So there's a coastal path, that wooden fence is a footpath that's open to the public. And the water comes in here, and this is planted up as a reed bed. So this reed bed, then we're replanting it now. It's been planted before. This reed bed acts as part of the nature reserve, so it has loads of birds nesting in it, loads of different wildlife nesting in it. You can actually see from all the footprints down here that there's a lot of birdie activity going on. But it also acts as a way of filtering out the heavy metals from the water. So the common reed is really well known as a really good way of removing the heavy metals and the pollutants from the water as it comes out of the mine, and then it can be released at the far end, and then it can just go back into the water courses as well. And then, as well as the common reeds, we've got loads of different plants around the edges. So you can see TCB Scotland were up last week, and they've done a lot of sort of complicated biodiversity planting. So we've got lots of different blocks. I don't know if you can see, this is the Latin name, so this is all a bit fancy. But we've got a long list of Latin names here of all the different species of plants that have been planted.
You can see the Phragmites there. That's the common reed. That's the main filter.
So Phragmites australis, the common reed. So that's the main thing. I think that's 80% of the planting. But then all around the end, patches of the kind of plants that have been selected, because it's really salty air. Like it's fresh water except for all the pollutants and the heavy metals in the mine. But it's right by the estuary, so everything that comes over, like you can feel like, when you're at the seaside and your skin gets all salty. It's very much like that. So there's a combination here of, Plantago maritima, that's sea plantain there, and there's bulrush and things. So it's marshy, but it's very much sort of salty. Coastal.
Why do we have lots of different ones? Why don't we just put all of the filter one in instead?
Those are mostly to increase biodiversity, because we want it to be a positive habitat. So it's to bring in birds that offer this, to regenerate the coastal things, because you can kind of see if you look over there, it's a very industrial setting. It's been, I think they were saying they've been mined coal here since the Roman times. So it's a very long established sort of industrial bit of coast, and it's just to bring in some of the biodiversity that would naturally be in this area. And around the edges of irises and things, there are some plants dotted about that are left over. So yeah, it's just to add more natural habitat for the birds and the wildlife, because it is a nature reserve. You can also see there's a solar farm up there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just on the other side of that green fence.
Just there.
And that's used to power the pump that brings the water out of the coal mine. So it's all quite a nice system of filtering the water, removing the pollutants before it goes to the sea, but also using renewable energy to do that, and bringing in environments and habitats that the wildlife can enjoy. Carry this map flapping around. So we're going to go over to Ian, who is the operations leader for some of the Yorkshire Coal and Composite offices of TCB, who is currently working really hard.
So the one of the questions that people might ask is, why doesn't the water from the mine shaft just get straight pumped into the sea? And if you look at this mud, you can see it's very bright on the camera, but it is a very bright orange. So there's lots of heavy metals, things like iron and other pollutants, and if you pump them straight in the sea, they'll settle on the seabed and they will massively pollute that habitat. So creatures that like living in sediment in the ocean, they do not want all of these heavy metals, because a lot of those are sort of bivalves and mollusks, so they filter the water and they don't want all of these heavy metals. So if we use this filtration system, hopefully the water comes out of here pretty clean. Okay, well this is it. I've just arrived this morning, so
stand on them.
Oh, it's not that bad. I was expecting it to be a lot deeper than this. This isn't too bad.
There are firmer patches and softer patches depending on where you get.
So yeah, this is Ian who has brought us onto this project this week. Talk about what you're doing.
So the thing that we're doing at the moment is basically infilling the internal part of the reed bed, and all species that are going in here, all the plants that are going in are Phragmites reeds, and the Phragmites basically acts as a natural filtration system. So once the roots establish, it becomes like a really thick, impenetrable mat of roots within the mud and the clay in the bottom of the lagoons. And it absorbs chemicals, and it locks in all the sort of pollutants and chemicals and such like that we wouldn't want going into out into the sea. And filtration beds using reeds are quite common things that have been used for a long time. It's well known that reeds act as a natural filtration system. And creating reed beds on a fairly large sort of industrial scale, again, is something that's becoming a lot more popular, rather than using mechanical and chemical treatments for cleaning the water. This is a much more natural system of doing it, and you also get the benefit of creating a habitat for wildlife and potentially for sort of public enjoyment as well. So hopefully once this reed bed and the other species become established, it'll be a really good haven for wildlife on the side of the estuary. A bit of a mosaic of habitat, and the extent of the reed bed that we're planting means that it'd be really good for certain species that like that sort of dense reed habitat for nesting. So there's a lot of smaller birds, bearded tit, for example, which uses reed beds to nest in, and they create almost like a little sort of basket nest that hangs within the dense reeds, but they will only really nest if it's a really well compacted dense reed bed. They like to be hidden away, quite elusive species. And then also things like waders and other sort of waterfowl. You might even get rarer species like a bittern that live in the reed beds as well. And again, they're the sort of species that like that sort of really dense, impenetrable kind of habitat where they feel safe and enclosed, away from predators and sort of public disturbance. So you can see the sort of extent of the reed bed that we're looking at. Potentially, when all that grows up, it becomes really thick reed bed. And if you're in the middle of there, I should imagine if I was stood there, maybe not necessarily with a high-vis jacket on, but stood in the middle of that in a few years' time, and you were stood up on the edges, you probably couldn't see much more than the top of my head. So for a small bird, or another species, another bit of wildlife, it's it's quite a good sort of habitat, and it gives them that sense of protection, particularly for nesting and using it as breeding habitat.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there were some so the dog walkers have been stopping and chatting to us as they've been going along the path. So we've had quite a lot of interaction with the locals telling us about it. And I think they were saying there were a bit nesting in it. Yeah. So we should say we're not creating this for the first time. So what happens is they create it, then they remove it, and that removes the heavy metals, and then they dispose of that in a way that removes the heavy metals, and then we plant it again. So this isn't sort of a permanent regeneration. So wouldn't count as sort of rewilding that we mentioned in the title, that we'll talk about a bit more later. But it's more of a use of regeneration. It's also an environmental service, so it's giving back something that, as Ian was saying, like it is an established way of filtering, and it's as effective as using a machine, if not in many ways more effective as using artificial methods. But it also offers all of this other benefits. Creating green space, creating habitat, removing carbon, all of that. And it's also really beneficial. Like, so the Coal Authority, of course, as they do this is a great way for them to solve the really practical removal of pollutants before it goes into the sea. So ticks a lot of boxes in terms of the good that it does. I mean, Alex, do you want to come out here?
Yeah, but I mean, just really quick, just because I think people probably will ask. I asked you earlier, you didn't know the exact number, but roughly how many of these plugs do you think are going to be put in?
We are definitely talking into there's over 10,000, easily over 10,000.
That's a lot, yeah.
When you come to here, you can kind of have a look down there and look down there and sort of show the viewers like what the extent of the planting is.
Treading very lightly.
Yeah, so the sort of grid here.
See all those little green and brown tufts coming out the top are the reed plugs.
And if you look that way, there's sort of a little wall at that end, so that's the point where the water's coming in. And then if you look back up that way, there's another, the muddy extent, and there's another little low wall there, and that's the extent of where we're planting. So it's a few hundred meters in each direction, isn't it? And yeah, it's kind of got these two little bulges out. It's got a figure of 8 shape, so there will be a lot of habitat and a lot of variation.
Can't stand still for too long. You won't get out. You'll become a feature of the
Brilliant. Shall we have a look at the planting with these?
Yeah, should we have a look at the plugs? Because we've been talking about the reed plugs, but we don't actually know what they look like.
Essentially, that is a plug plant. As you can see, as the name suggests, it is literally, just like a plug of roots. They're grown in plastic trays, and they just pop out like that. They hold the shape, which is really useful when you're putting them in the ground. You just particularly when it's wet and mucky like this, you just make a bit of a slot, and they just drop in, and then just firm them in with your boot, and away they go. So
we found out about a new tool, which is planting spheres. They're great.
Wow, look at that, yeah.
I like finding out about new tools.
So essentially those are the plugs. And once they're in the ground, then the root system can get going.
Can we go and have a visit our wild skills trainees?
Yeah, we can do, if I can get over there.
I'm going to squelch. You might get some, hopefully the microphone's picking up some really good squelching.
So here we have some of our star workers here.
It is a beautiful sunny day. We have got so lucky. Yeah, kind of sort of 50 gaps between the different poles. I'm just doing that sort of on a big grid, and then popping the plugs in. Try not to fall over.
Oh, I've just about have people falling over then. Yeah. Oh. Well, at least here it's just mud. I did this when I was probably 15 with RSPB, and the wellies they gave me were way too big, and my foot came out, and I just went into the water.
We got you some better footing. So yeah, that is something. So we're just doing stuff that treats mine water. So this is just for the coal mine water, but this is actually a system that's used quite a lot for sewage treatment as well. So that's something that we can be grateful for. We're not working in sewage. So yeah, quite a lot of places and quite a lot of water boards will use it. Often for a combination when they'll be putting the mine water in and the sewage water once it's been treated, and they'll be doing the final filtration system through reed beds. So that's quite a sort of multifunctional use that you get from them. Other good bird books.
There's some right here. These, obviously, it's difficult to tell in the mud because they're so squelchy, but they don't look webbed. Oh, do they? No, they do look webbed. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that one there looks webbed.
Yeah, we are right off the coast.
There's probably lots of seagulls. Oh yeah, there you go. There.
I was really hoping to find like otter footprints. But...
Yeah, that's another thing. Reed beds. So we think a lot about the birds and stuff, but otters, especially, reed beds are great for them because they'll go and they'll hunt in the estuary or in the sea, and then they can come and shelter in the reed bed. So everybody loves a nice, cute little otter, don't they? Yeah, I am. It's quite amusing, to be honest.
More about the tree plant. Yeah. The sort of colliery side work. Yeah. Old coal mine. When I say colliery, I mean the old coal side, old processing side.
Yeah. So the work we're doing here, being coordinated with joint approaches from other companies that we work with, and obviously the main focus is on sort of regeneration of old colliery sites. So as well as this sort of reed bed planting scheme, there are other schemes down in the Yorkshire area, in the old coal fields, some which are already well established. So there are TCB teams around the Doncaster area that are working on a handful of sites in that area that have already been regenerated and turned into woodlands and grasslands and the likes. But there are more sites that we're looking at trying to recreate better habitat in the West Yorkshire area. So around Barnsley, for example, there are various other colliery sites that we're talking to the owners about, where hopefully TCB can get involved and look at sort of creating some useful habitats, particularly woodland. Tree planting is obviously a big thing at the moment, particularly in the sort of the North England and the Yorkshire area with the Northern Forest initiatives. So everybody wants to plant trees. So there's a lot of emphasis on doing some woodland creation and big scale tree planting in that area. But as well as that, there'll be things like meadow creation and grassland and amenity sites as well. So it's not all about just covering an area in dense habitat, dense woodland, reed beds and the likes. There is an element of getting sort of public engagement and getting public into those sites to be able to use them for recreational purposes as well. So regenerating an old colliery site, because of the scale of them, it gives you really sort of a broad spectrum of potential for creating really useful, good habitats, but still allowing public access and walking routes and recreation and such like. Having them just closed off to the public, because they've been that for many, many decades when they were performing the purpose of industrial sites. Now we want to try and sort of regenerate them for habitat benefit, for wildlife benefit, but also to give local communities a site that they can go to, a green site that they can enjoy, and get out, get into the fresh air, enjoy the habitats, join in with some volunteering, do some conservation work, that sort of thing. Just sort of transform that industrial landscape that's now pretty much derelict and defunct, and turn it into something that's really useful for the modern society.
From the interaction we've had with dog walkers that have been coming along this path, like it really is a well-loved space by the local people that walk, come for their daily walk and telling us about what they've seen, telling about the different species, and because they took this the old reed bed out, there was quite a lot of concern about where's it gone, is it coming back, and there's a real sense of pride in the fact that this wetland is here, this reed bed is here, so it is a really positive thing. So if you've got a spare colliery, a spare old coal mine knocking about that you want regenerating, get in touch. Just going to point out there's some really good heron tracks.
Oh yeah.
So you can kind of see they've got
That's a bird that everybody likes. The big sort of.
My friend's mum describes them as disreputable undertakers.
There's massive, almost like dinosaur-looking footprints.
And they just go along in this really straight line, don't they? Who was it? one of the wildlife skills trainees was saying that, like they to go like 1 foot after the other. I can't remember who said it, so I can't give adequate credit. But it's got, you can see there's just like a straight line of footprints along the way.
Well, hopefully give it a few years, and we might have some nesting herons here. It'd be quite nice.
There's still, so they've got rid of the reeds here, but there is still up on the other side. They've got quite a lot of the settling ponds and things. Alex has got stuck.
I'm stuck. It's fine. I won't. I'm not moving now. I don't want to move and drop the camera.
Alex lives here now.
That's fine. I don't.
Yeah, so the settling ponds things where, like we talked about at the start, when the water first comes out, it's all full of this clay, and they leave it in those really deep, 10-metre deep ponds up there, and it settles. But around that, they've got reed beds still as the edging. So when we were walking around earlier, like there's quite a lot of the birds are still sort of up there. They've not completely removed the habitat from the whole area when they've got rid of this to replant it. There is still something, but yeah, every so often it just needs removing and replanting. But with neighbouring stuff that is always there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Are there any questions? I'm going to check straight away. We've got a few good mornings and a few that they can hear us fine.
Excellent.
Which is good. We're worried about we are still going to get the microphones there.
Yeah. For people that watch regularly who notice that we often can hear Alex because he's holding the camera, but possibly luckily you can't hear me all the time.
It's not me covering the microphone up.
So we've got some microphones on order, and you should be able to hear us a little bit better. So for people that have been struggling with it, you've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
Fully being able to hear us chatting our nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about regeneration a lot and the services, because rewilding is something that you may have heard the term. So that is about taking land that's been used for different things, be it for farming,
sorry, 1 second. We are Sandy. Sandy Brown is late. She says, "Are you in Blyth?" Yes.
We are in Blyth, up in Northumberland, and it is particularly beautiful, I'm going to say. We're having a lovely time. We're staying at the Queen Park, which is a lovely place, and
another former colliery site. So, the hotel we're staying in, which is about 5-6 miles up that way, again, it's an old colliery site. So there's a hotel on the edge of it, but it's been the rest of the site that was just all the old spoil heaps. It's all been removed. It's been landscaped, and now there's a great big lake and some woodlands and lots of footpaths and stuff you can walk around. And I think there's a mining museum next door to it called Woodhorn.
So it has some lovely couple of walks. Went and had chips on the seaside last night. Yeah. So thank you anyone that's watching from Northumberland. Thanks for having us. We're having a lovely time. It is beautiful. But that one is more, I think that one's more nature reserve-y, isn't it? What they've made there. So whereas this one is very much, it still has a functional industrial purpose. There is ones like the Queen Elizabeth Country Park where they've just made it into a nature reserve. It's got a massive lake, lovely walk, lots of trees around it, lots of dead wood. I've been noticing that's been left lying around. It's really nice, very much focused on habitat creation by the look of it there. So that's kind of more the permanent regeneration. Not quite rewilding. So it is rewilding on a small scale. So rewilding kind of applies big scale, but that's more where it gets fully left to return to a wild state. Whereas the regeneration and the stuff that we're doing, like Ian's talking about, it much more goes into finding that balance between functionality, but also habitat creation and improving areas, improving communities, and having this sort of multifunctional reach that makes it just great. There's just a lot that could be said for having a functional nature reserve in an area that just everybody wins, isn't it? Yeah. And it's really lovely to see this sort of combination of initiatives that's being brought in. So you'll be seeing lots more trees around the Yorkshire collieries and lots more reed beds at the Northumberland ones.
Yeah.
I
mean that is a solid half an hour there. It was a whistle-top store, very informative. I'm impressed. This was my introduction to this project as well, so I'm part of the audience today.
So Alex has come up today to help today and tomorrow, so that's why you've not received it. He's not money at all. It's new work trousers. These are my new work trousers. Look at them.
Yeah, so again, it's that really like iron orange mud. Yeah.
We're all looking like we've got really badly applied paint tan. So we've left these the wildlife skills trainees and the Green Network to do all of the work this morning. So it's probably time that we say goodbye. And yeah.
Do you know what next week is? Something.
I want to say bird feeders, but
okay, TBD. But same time, same place, different place actually. Still on Facebook and YouTube.
And yeah, if you do want to ask us any questions, so we're recording this live now, so we won't be able to answer your questions verbally if you ask them after we've stopped recording it. But this will be available to watch online after, and it's available to share. And you can ask questions in the comments, and we will periodically check them and try and get back to you on any questions you have.
Yeah.
And any information you want. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Either live or after the fact. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone.